just because men and women are equal in the eyes of value spiritually, in the eyes of value as a person, has nothing to do with your value on the sexual dating marketplace. Right. It has nothing to do with what life is going to hand you.
Before we dive into the crisis of marriage, crisis of dating, and everything like that, I think there are certain things that we probably need to define.
Right.
One of those things would be, you hear all this talk about high value man. I believe now you're starting to hear high value woman. So who, or no, not who. I was going to say who defines who. Actually, no, yeah, let's go there. So who would define what a high value woman is?
All right. I guess I will go first with that. To me, it has to be defined by quote unquote your peers. And the reason why I say that is because you can run around and talk about I'm high value this, I'm high value that. If the men or the women around you don't see you as that, I don't think necessarily that you can define yourself as high, quote unquote, high value. I guess I'll go from a woman's perspective of what I consider high value to be and what the guys that I kind of roll with, what we all consider a high value woman to be, a quote unquote, or whatever. To us, a high value woman is, generally speaking, a woman. First off, I'll just get this one right off the bat. She has to be attractive. She has to be the kind of woman where when you see her, she kind of turns her head and you say, okay, she's sexy. She's attractive. I would like to talk to her. That's one aspect of a high value woman, because at the end of the day, whether it's good or bad, men, we don't particularly care too much about quote unquote how much money you make. There is an aspect to it that we do, but that's not necessarily the first thing we think about. So that's how I define a high value woman. Another thing too about a high value woman is that, generally speaking, most men is kind of changing a little. Well, they're trying to change a little bit now. I don't think it's ever going to change, but generally speaking, you don't see like a lot of high value women with, for instance, OnlyFans accounts. You don't see like a lot of high value women, quote unquote, with like porn, with sex tapes or whatever floating around. I'll just be, we get honest on this show, so let's get honest. Yeah. I don't really know of a lot of high value women that had careers basically in the adult film industry or strippers or nothing like that. That's just not high value women typically have very, very, very good reputations or whatever. You never see, for instance, LeBron James's wife basically make it with an OnlyFans account. It just doesn't happen. You're not going to see that kind of stuff. Right. So those are some of the aspects of high value women. On a more legacy standpoint, I notice that high value women also raise high value children. So for instance, if you take a look at, like, I would say Denzel Washington's wife, I don't even know what she looks like, but take a look at Denzel Washington's kids. One of them has a very affluent acting career, and he's done it completely irrespective of his father. Right. So compare Denzel Washington's kids to another gentleman who's just in the media for smacking another guy. Compare Denzel's kids to that guy's kids. I hate to say it, but like, just look at the outcomes. Just look at the outcomes or whatever. So there's a lot of different factors that kind of go into high value women. I actually have a video about that where I talk about 16 signs of a high value woman. So everybody, you can check that out. But those are like the kind of rough and dirty. They have to have a good reputation. They have to essentially bring. They have to be attractive. And on top of it, they have to basically help you build generational wealth. That's how I define high value women. And if I want to get to the physical thing, they need to be fit, they need to be friendly, they need to be feminine, and they basically need to have a very small, I would say, reputation, if you will. As far as high value men, kind of the exact opposite or whatever. We're defined a lot more by our money. It could be a good, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, but at the end of the day, women want a man who's going to protect them, a man who's going to provide for them, a man who's going to lead them. So the way I define a high value man is, A, you need to be financially literate to the point where you can tell a woman, babe, I got this. And if you listen to what I'm telling you to do, we're going to build generational wealth. That to me is a high value man, because you're basically essentially telling a woman, financially, I'm going to be good. I'm going to work as hard as I need to work so I can basically provide for you. Two, I'm a lifelong martial artist, and I think there is an aspect of you need to be willing to protect your wife. I am a certified pistol instructor. I'm a certified rifle instructor. I've done martial arts for over 20 years. If I physically needed to defend my family, my wife has seen me fight. She's seen me shoot guns. She's seen me do all that kind of stuff. So I can physically defend her. If there's a bump at night in the middle of the night, she knows I can defend her. from a financial standpoint, I think that on top of that, men, we need to basically be providers. And on top of that, we need to basically love our wives and love our kids. That's how I define being a high value man. And on top of that, there also is a level of respect you have to get from your peers. If you're in a room with 10 guys, they need to respect that guy because, quote unquote, they say, okay, Chris brings value to the table. Jermaine brings value to the table. He can roll with us because he's invited to our country clubs. He's invited to our pastoral meetings. He's invited to basically our guys on our business trips because we know this guy brings value to the table. That's how I define a high value man. I know it's a long-winded speech, but that's how I define it. And on top of that, too, I think high value men basically take care of their bodies because at the end of the day, if you die of a heart attack at 40, and you were making $100,000 a year, you just cost your family $2.5 million because you died 25 years prematurely. That's how I define a high value man. So, yep.
Okay. Talk to him, Chris. I love it. Love it.
Focused.
Okay.
I would add now to everything that he said, 100%, right? Especially when you're talking about the sexual dating marketplace, 100%. I would add, and it's something that we've been saying in our show a lot. Character matters for everybody. Mm-hmm. You can have everything that Chris was talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And if there is lack in your character, there is cracks in the foundation of your family. Mm-hmm. So one of the things you said was that he has to add value for the men. He has to add value. He has to have respect. So there goes, it automatically indicates a level of character. What a lot of guys don't do is that they'll hear what you just said and they won't pick up on the subtle way that it's suggested that there be a certain amount of character, because you can't have a certain type of reputation, which is exactly what you said when you were defining a high value woman, without having a certain amount of character. A lot of people believe that as a man, I can just get certain amount of money and I can try to get a certain amount of status, but I don't have to have a certain amount of character because nobody cares. Well, you can try that with you. You'll attract a lot of women. You will. What kind? You know, you'll attract a lot of women and a lot of women who will want to marry you. But what kind? And if you start things on a rocky foundation because you don't have the character thing in place. So a lot of people don't understand, especially when Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, when he was talking about a lot of these things, a lot of people didn't understand that because he didn't openly verbalize that character was a part of the thing. A lot of people separated them. Because they started going for all of the things, but not a lot of the underlying things that makes you able to attain a lot of these things. In order to have a certain type of reputation, there has to be some character there. In order to have, let's just be honest, a low body count for a woman, there has to be a certain amount of character there, you know? So a lot of people just sort of jump over it and they feel that as long as I'm a man and I get money, as long as I'm a woman and I'm pretty, I'm automatically high value because they said such and such and such. No, boo-boo, you missed the point.
Exactly.
You know, there is an underlying allusion to these things in these descriptions of a high value man and a high value woman that a lot of people miss. And I think that's one of the things that we're fighting for and against as we're talking about this new dating market, because everybody is concentrating on the things and not the character that you need in order to attain these things.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. It's funny because as men, I mean, I'm pretty sure you've been in a situation, you've been like at a bar or at I don't know, a country club or whatever, and a guy will show up and he's talking about like all these different married women that he's banging or all these different business deals that he's doing, and you're listening to this guy explain, you say, okay, what you're doing is illegal, bro. You might get away with it, but you're gonna get caught. Right. A guy talking about all the different things that he's doing. He's like, yo, this is a seedy, scummy guy. I'm not really rolling. And then dude can be a millionaire, but at the end of the day, you're like, all right, I'm not introducing my family around you. I'm not introducing you to the rest of my people in my country club. I'm not introducing you to any of my business dealings or anything because I'm cool with you. I'm cool hanging out with you in this little facet that we're kicking it, whether it's like we're lifting weights or we're playing ball or we're golfing or whatever it is. But I'm not going to introduce you to the true movers and shakers in my life because I don't trust you and I don't particularly like you. Right, and that to me is where the character kind of comes into play, because at the end of the day, I don't care how much quote unquote money you make. I'm not going to be rolling with a guy who I think the feds are going to show up. I'm not going to roll with a guy who I don't want like one of my female acquaintances to be around because I know he's a scummy guy. That's just the way that it is. Right. It's like there is an aspect of reputation to it or whatever that has to kind of come into play. And you're right. A lot of men, particularly in the manosphere, red pill space, they kind of miss that, I would say.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
And one of the things I was just going to add to that is I think one of the bigger issues with the dating market, with these different mentalities as far as like what's a high value man and what's a high value woman, oftentimes we hear about or we see the modern day feminists basically who are upset with the high value men or just men in general, discrediting them. We did a video about this not too long ago about basically them not understanding what men hold value when it comes to women and what they're looking for. So basically, who defines who is high value? It's whoever that person is trying to attract. So for women, if you're trying to attract a high value man, then they're the ones who define basically what a high value woman is, and vice versa. Like if a woman is trying to find a high value man, then it's the women basically who are defining what high value men are. Right. And I think that that's a big point that is being missed, you know, with a lot of the bickering that's going back and forth, you know, in the dating market, right, and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think another thing too that feminists kind of miss out, misogynistic men miss out on some stuff too. But I think one of the things that feminists miss out on too when it comes to the whole dating market is that when it boils down to it, you can blame the man upstairs, but when you factor in men that are homosexual, when you factor in men that basically don't have a male reproductive organ, when you factor in men that are broke, when you factor in men that are incarcerated, when you factor in guys that basically are mentally handicapped or whatever, there are literally like 10 heterosexual women for every one heterosexual man. And then on top of that, when you factor in the fact that men, I can be 90 years old and still basically probably pull like a 40-year-old and still get her pregnant. But you're never going to see the opposite. You're never going to see like a 90-year-old woman dating a 40-year-old man unless if he's trying to steal her money. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
So one of the things I think feminists kind of really are disingenuous about when it comes to younger women is that for better or for worse, there is a double standard when it comes to dating, but there's also a double standard when it comes to the fact that there are a lot more heterosexual women than there are heterosexual men. So that's why I kind of really push back when women say, well, it's my body, my choice. I can do what I want to do. I can live how I want to live. Yeah, you're right. You can. But at 40 years old, a 40-year-old guy, I lived in Miami for almost a decade. I can't tell how many 60-year-old men I saw with 25 and 30-year-old women that actually you seriously did love them or whatever. But you never saw the opposite. So to me, feminists, I think, are being kind of disingenuous with women when they try to push this idea that you can literally behave just like a man and you can get the same outcomes. And that's not the way that's not the same thing. And I always try to push back on like a lot of women who ask me questions, but I'm like, look, guys can do this kind of stuff. And whether you like it or not, our options are a lot better at 30 than they are for you at 30. Our options are a lot better at 50 than they are for you at 35. And to me, feminists miss out on that a lot, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we're just rolling into it. The idea of fairness, and I think that's one of the things that I hear about a lot. And a lot of people need to understand, like, the easy way to say it is life isn't fair because we live in this participation trophy society. We believe that, you know, everybody should be rewarded for just showing up, just for being alive. You should be. And in a lot of situations, I've been hearing a lot lately that a lot of women, unfortunately, they sort of get a participation trophy because of how their value exists when it comes to the sexual marketplace, the things they had to do. Like, I always hear content creators. This isn't me. This ain't me. So y'all don't get mad at me. I always hear content creators say, you know, if you have a yacht, in order for a guy to be on the yacht, he has to have done something and worked for it for such a long time, for so hard. Even if it's not his, in order to get into the company of somebody who has the yacht, you have to have put in a lot of groundwork. Most guys ain't going to see that yacht until they 30, 35. Matt, it's not really 30, 35. To be honest, it's like 45, y'all.
40,
but I'm
45.
gonna say, because we in the social media world and everybody's seeing these guys do it younger because of social media, I'm gonna just say 30, 35. Okay. But realistically, y'all, it's like in their 40s, 50s. That's when in order to get on a yacht, they gotta be there. It takes that long to build yourself to be able to do that. The woman at 20 years old,
a nice butt, nice smile.
She there. She already on the yacht. You know, whether it's the guy who owns it, whether it's his girl or whether it's one of the guys who came there, their girl or whatever. Like the way the world is built, when we talk about fairness, I don't think a lot of people understand that regardless of how it hurts our feelings, this world as it exists does not care about fairness. And at the end of the day, you have to take into consideration that things are not going to be even 100%. Just because men and women are equal in the eyes of value spiritually, in the eyes of value as a person, has nothing to do with your value on the sexual dating marketplace. It has nothing to do with what life is going to hand you. And I think I said it not too long ago. You can get a horrible consequence for making the right decision. And it's just the way the world is built and the way that it is. And you have to understand that things aren't always going to be fair. So the idea of fairness that we have in our minds is really one of the things that is messing people up in the way that they view the world and how things are supposed to be and stuff like that. Because even if we tried to change, if everything in America changed and was a certain way and everything was even and everything was fair, you know, somehow, whatever that would look like, the rest of the world wouldn't operate that. And they don't really care about how we think we want to set up our society. And if they see that we go soft,
they're gonna take it.
Believe, because you know we talking. No, I don't even want to go into the.
They coming to take it,
man, and all of that stuff. I'm not even gonna go into it. I'm gonna just say there's a reason why men are built a certain way and why women are built a certain way, and it is in our best interest to not buck against that so hard that we eliminate real men. And by real, I mean men who are willing to do the things that everybody else ain't willing to do.
I would say too, that's actually kind of one of the very cool things about America, because my grandfather was a sharecropper. My father was U.S. military. I'm a mechanical engineer who teaches finance, and my son is probably going to be the first generation who's going to be, I call it the black privilege class, where Christopher is going to have the ability, and my nephews as well, the ability to basically be in any world that he wants to be in. He's going to have a leg up because of the financial things we're setting in place for him. But when you talk about fair, I always say, like, just like the analogy you said right there, if I'm a 45-year-old single man on a yacht and a bad 20-year-old chick walks by me and I'm not married, I'm single, say in this example, I'm a single guy, I'm going to holler at the 20-year-old girl twice as fast as I'm going to holler at her 45-year-old mother who's the same age as I am. Why? Because the 20-year-old she doesn't have a kid yet. Or whatever. But in the same respect, the 45-year-old woman, she may have worked really hard to get to that point. She may basically be making the same kind of income levels that I'm making, but that does not turn me on. It does nothing for me. But her 20-year-old daughter, that's kind of what men want to go after. It's not fair. But it also goes to another way. Let's say you're the type of guy who you basically have no, you're not careful with your seed or whatever, and you're not basically careful with the type of woman that you marry. Let's say you marry this low value 20-year-old because she's pretty, she's a big butt and a nice smile. Let's say she has one kid with you and leaves you. You're looking at 18 years of child support, alimony, and possibly some other damages or whatever. And because of no-fault divorces that unfortunately go on in this country, that are generally speaking, 90% of the stuff goes to the woman and goes to the child. As men, that's not fair for us. So it's like, how do you want to define fairness? Women will say it's not fair that a guy can essentially be a whore or whatever, and a guy, like you said, can be 45 years old and still pull a bad 20-year-old. But men will say it's not fair that you can marry whoever you want. But a lot of women out here, Drake is an example. He basically look what that girl did to him or whatever. Where he got the wrong woman pregnant, and she's looking at literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a month of child support for the next 17 years. So it's like, you're right, life's not fair. We got to get over it, people. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.